Hey guys, Jeffrey's here once again, bringing you the next in my installments of Pro Evolution Soccer 2013 as Jeffrey's United. Now you saw in the first video how I was setting the team up, the whole tactics, set pieces, different strategies. I did forget to mention in the first video actually about auto subs and auto formation changes. Now some people might say that it's probably not a good idea for a manager to be doing that because then you're not in charge of the team. But the way I see it is you can play PES in two modes: coach mode or manager mode, as it were. I like to do it with auto subs on, and I like to do it with auto formation changer on, because it means once I'm in a match I can focus solely on the game. And it doesn't then become locked in. Like, once you've chosen auto subs, you can still make subs yourself if you think your team isn't quite playing right, and you can still move players around. Sometimes the game fights back and moves the players back to where they were originally. But for me, I prefer that option. I prefer being able to focus on the game, because you'll see when I play FIFA, sometimes I forget to make subs, as it were. I'm so engrossed in the match and what's actually going on there, I forget to make substitutions. Which you can end up in the 89th minute and you're wondering why your striker's running a bit slow, and then you suddenly realise he's red barring, and there's not much you can do because you can't change him then. You might not have time before the match finishes, and you could end up with an injured striker because of it. Whereas in PES, I can tell my assistant or whoever's in charge of the subs, make the subs quite early on or quite late on, or whenever you like, basically. Say you bring on a striker for a midfielder, you can then change the formation accordingly, and I'll just focus on playing the match and scoring the goals and winning us the games. That's if I'm playing the game. In this game, the match that's just kicked off here against Club Bruges, I have it in coach mode, so the whole game plays itself basically. And this is a feature I love about PES, which I think FIFA needs to bring back. I think it's FIFA 08 they phased it out. It might have been afterwards, where you used to be able to sim matches and see it go on. But if there was something about the match you didn't like, you could then go into the game and take over, as it were. And I used to love that feature, the fact that you can get through matches and seasons quite quickly, but then at the same time, if something goes wrong during a game, you can jump into the game and take over and turn the game around in your favour again. And that was a feature that I really liked about the game, and it's a feature here which PES have tried to sort of recreate that I like about this. The only thing I don't like about coach mode is once you've started in coach mode, you can't then come out of it during a match. I will just go off on a tangent slightly and say that was a very good goal from Peter Wilkinson, as I've named him. I mean, you can make up your own name for P. It could be Paul, could be Paolo, who knows. He is English though, so it is up to you what you call him, but his surname's Wilkinson. That's basically it. There's three Wilkinsons. There's L, there's R, there's P. I ran out of names basically, so I just called three people Wilkinson. I think there's another couple of brothers in there somewhere. But yeah, as I was saying, coach mode. This game is in coach mode. I also have it in 5-minute halves. After this match, I change it to 10-minute halves, and the first match of the season I actually play myself. I have split that into a two-parter. The parts of which will be uploaded separately, just so that I can actually show the whole match. Once this series is kicked off, and it's the same with my FIFA one, I'll cut it down and just show highlights. But just to get started, I've decided to show the whole of the match, just so people get an idea of how I play FIFA. They might get a few ideas from it themselves. I'm also looking to learn from it, so if anyone watches my videos and sees mistakes I make during the course of a 90-minute game, they can let me know through the comments or through messaging or however they choose, and then it helps me improve as a player as well, so I can produce better quality videos for you guys. But another reason I like coach mode on this game, and again people might call me lazy for this one, is I like to be able to go through matches and see them being played without necessarily playing them myself. So in this case, when I was playing this game, I just sat and watched it. It's almost like watching TV, football on the TV. And considering we're in the off season at the moment, I'm really suffering from relapses and withdrawal symptoms of not being able to watch TV. I miss Sky Sports quite a lot. So this is like my backup plan, as it were. I just stick PES on, play a few games on that on coach mode, or sometimes if I really want to, I play it with the controller. And you know, it's my fix of live football until it actually kicks off again. It also gives you a chance to see how your team play, like how your players are actually meant to play. Because the game, I remember one time I had a right back who I used to do runs down the line with a lot. And that was all I did, run down the line, get to the byline, pull it back. And it wasn't necessarily successful. And then one day I happened to watch on coach mode, and I realised that he's actually really good at hitting the ball from deep and like picking strikers out that way. So from then on, I kept him inside my own half and just pinged the ball forward, and I scored a lot more goals from doing that than I did from running with him to the byline and pulling the ball back. And it's ways like that as well. You can learn how your team operate and improve as a manager and as a player just by watching how your team play when you're not in charge. And that's another feature I like about how they've set up this whole coach mode thing. And I'm sure the real reason coach mode was created is it gives you that feeling of being a football manager, in that you're basically stood at the sidelines watching your team play, and you have no control over what they actually do once they're out on the pitch. You can still make substitutions, and you can still change tactics and formations and things like that, but you can't directly say to the left winger, pass it to the right winger. You have to see yourself whether he will pick out that pass. And it makes the game a lot more exciting in that respect, because you could just have players who could be 1-0 down in the 89th minute, and then they just, they change their formation so they have like 4 strikers up front, and then they'll just solely pass between these 4 strikers until they find an opening and score. Whereas on coach mode, you can set the 4 strikers up there, but then you have to rely on them to pick each other out in order to find the goal. And for me, it's just like watching real life football. As I've said in my FIFA career, I'm a Stevenage fan, but I'm also a Newcastle United fan. So I've had my fair shares of 89th minute waiting for a goal, be it an equaliser or a winner. We won't go into that now, because I'm sure people would take the mickey if I start talking about Newcastle. So as you see, I'm 1-0 up against Bruges at half time. I scored a very good goal. I've noticed that my team work together, particularly in the 4-2-3-1. They are fantastic in that they're making a lot of attacks and they're keeping the ball outside of their own box. And that is exactly the sort of philosophy, let's say, I want in my team. I want it to be attack by defend by attacking. So as long as I've got the ball, doesn't matter where I am on the pitch with it. I'd prefer it to be outside the opposition's box, but as long as I'm holding onto the ball, the other team can't score. So you'll see in some matches I do go backwards and it can get a bit snoozy, but then I go forward and I score cracking goals like that. And that is Liberty Delamond who scored that one. I introduced him in the last video, as I did to Bobo da Silva, who was playing on the left in this game, I believe, and actually played the pass through there for Delamond to score. Something else which I tweaked when I set this team up is I created versatility. So you'll see, obviously I created Bobo and Delamond from scratch, and I made Bobo play all the way across the advanced midfield areas and up front, whereas Delamond, I made him play all across the midfield completely, so he can play on the left or the right, you can play advanced or defensive, and it just gives you that extra dynamic in the game, in that you can have a man who starts on the left, let's say, like Bobo tends to do a lot of his career, and then in the second half you can sub your main striker off for, let's say, a right midfielder. Delamond can be on the right, he can then shift over to the left, and Bobo can go up front. And again, seeing football live and in person, that's a good tactic to have, because you can have a defender in a game who for 60 minutes, say, has been marking one man, and then the 61st minute you make a substitution and suddenly he's got to mark someone completely different, who has a different physique, different top speed, different acceleration, all because you have a versatile squad. So you can have a midfielder who can also play up front. I have a lot of defenders who can play across the back as well, which I find that incredibly interesting as well, in that I don't like players who can only play in one position, because to me, they're either a backup option or they're the first ones out the door. I like players to be versatile. It also means you have injuries or suspensions. You still have a strong enough squad in order to compete in every game. I found on Football Manager a few times, which is where I got this tactic from, that you end up playing like a youth player at right back just because both your right backs are injured and there's no one else who can play there. So on PES, each one of my players plays in at least 2 positions, sometimes 3. I have a couple of players who play like, you got like left wing and right wing, who can also play up front, and they can also play as an attacking midfielder. And you know, it just makes the game a lot more interesting. And again, for me, this probably isn't the way it should be done, but it makes it more of a lottery, because you never really know who's playing where until the game kicks off. Because again, I have auto lineup selector as well. I have my assistant choose my team on form, not ability, so it's whoever's playing best in that position will get picked. Which again, for me, that's realism. That's what you want. FIFA, you have players come to you complain when they're not being picked, but if they're not the best player, then of course they're not going to get picked. Whereas on PES, you can have a player who's not necessarily playing well get dropped, someone else will come in to fill in for them, and then you'll find they're doing a better job anyway, so they keep that position for however long, until, like, you know, an injury or a suspension, let's say, and then the first player might get their position back. You know, like, especially with Bobo and Delamond, I don't know where they're going to play at the start of the game until I've seen it. So it's interesting to see, first of all, where they're playing, and then second of all, once you know where they're playing, you can work out how that's going to help your team. So if Bobo's on the left, he can make, you know, long runs, quick runs down the line. He can cross the ball. If you have Delamond playing through the middle, he can get on the end of the ball if the striker doesn't. But then on the flip side, if you've got Bobo in the middle, he can like penetrate the defence. He can make darting runs through the middle there, and he can cause a lot more problems that way. And if he's playing up front, he's a very good target man. So yes, 2-0 at the end of this game. P. Wilkinson scored the first, and Liberty Delamond scored the second. Now this is something I found in coach mode for when I'm playing it. When I'm playing it myself, I have a lot more shots on goal, but not necessarily on target. Whereas if I'm playing on coach mode, I might not have as many shots in total, but I find I have a lot more on target. So you can see on the stats there, I had 4 shots, 4 on target. The opposition had nowhere near that many, which again for me is very encouraging, because it means I've got a good strong defence, which I might build on later on in the game, but for now I feel really confident for the start of the season. So this is the end of this video, guys, but in the next video you'll see I start building more onto the team and getting ready for the season start. So until next time, guys, I will see you soon.